And hello again, Cobra sports fans, and welcome into a new edition of Cobra Corner here on Parkland College Television. We are back for another year of Parkland College athletics. We will be joined by head coach Tim Knotts of the women's soccer team. Also, we'll have a special feature on the nationally ranked Parkland College volleyball team. And then to finish the show, we'll be joined by head coach of the men's soccer team, Mark Sikora. So we'll take a break before we welcome in Tim Knotts. Don't go anywhere. This is Cobra Corner here on PCTV. And welcome back to Cobra Corner, as we are pleased to welcome to the show the head coach for the Parkland College women's soccer team, Tim Knotts. So Tim, thank you for taking a few minutes to join us here today on Cobra Corner.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So coming into your second year with the program now, pretty successful year, got some wins, had some very good soccer on the field last year. So how much more comfortable do you feel now coming into year two with the program than maybe you did your first year coaching the Cobras?
Yeah, it's been some challenges in the first year, but like anything, when you're new to something, you've got a few hurdles to work through. It's been a good second year for us. Definitely feel a little more comfortable with how everything works with the program, and the girls are off to a good start, and still glad we have a lot more season left.
Also a change to your coaching staff this year is you brought on Patrice Salerno as your assistant coach. What are some things that you feel that she's added to the team, and how is that dynamic working, getting your girls ready to play each and every day?
Yeah, she's been a great addition for us. One thing with her, she played college soccer herself at Millikan, so she comes in with experience of being through a program already, and obviously she understands the dynamic of the women's team a little bit better than I do, so she's been a big help connecting with the girls, and has been a really good addition, not only with the dynamic of the team but the knowledge she brings to the game.
And it's a somewhat unique even split for the team this year with 8 freshmen and 8 sophomores. So how have you relied on those sophomores and the girls that are returning to kind of help get the freshmen up to speed, so that way they can have a nice contribution here for their freshman campaign?
Yeah, actually it's been a really good start. Our captains, Ali and Bia, have done a great job leading the team and really promoting the team environment that we're all in this together, and it's not sophomores versus freshmen. So they've done a really good job of including everybody, and our returning players have responded well, from their lead, and we've really transitioned into a good team. And it's nice to have a balance of freshmen and sophomore as we go each year, and we lose players and pick up new players. But the team's off to a great start. The dynamic's really good, and yeah, we're feeling really good about the energy so far.
And something most coaches always like to keep in their back pocket. Seems like we have some pretty good firepower on this year's team. It can really put some goals on the board. Return all 3 scorers from last year: Beatriz Pinheiro, Ali Hosey, and Gabriela Schutte. So how is it having those 3 top goal scorers back? But then also, who are some other players that you're looking to maybe contribute offensively this year?
Yeah, it's really nice to bring back those players that have scored the goals last year. Allie's off to a great start, and Bea and Gabby have scored goals. Myra has scored, so we've really relied on them, and they've gotten off to a good start. Milena Du Prado is a new player for us this year, so she brings a lot of skill as a center midfielder. She's set up a lot of goals for us, so she's a good playmaker, but she's got a good touch on the ball. She can finish, so. Yeah, we're bringing. It's nice to have some variety in our attack. You never want to rely on one player to score all the goals. So, yeah, so far things are good.
And describe just a little bit, if you will, for the Cobra fans out there, kind of your philosophy on coaching, formations you like to use, and what can we kind of pace of play can we see out of the Parkland College women's soccer team?
Well, yeah, you have to respond to your opponents. So sometimes in one game it may look a little bit different to another game, but we're really trying to promote our players to get forward and involved, so we don't have a lot of players just sitting back on defense. We want to score goals. We want to set up our offense so that people see, a dynamic attack. And, at the end of the day, we want to score goals. We want to have a good defense, but, people want to see offense, and people want to see the ball going in the back of the net.
And that's something that Parkland has certainly been known for the last few seasons, really been a dangerous offensive team. And so we talked a little bit about the offensive side. Who are some of the key cogs that are going to help prevent us some goals from going in the net this year and really can factor that in and helping the offense get set up as well, as you were mentioning?
Yeah, we're returning our starting goalie, so that's one good start for our defensive unit. Kiera's our number one, and we had a shutout last game, which was really good. Sometimes when we won 8-0, sometimes you can get a little complacent when you score a bunch of goals. So our defense did a good job of staying focused and not letting them score. We've got a new center back, Alexis Halden, and she's paired up really well with Savannah. So they've done a good job as a center back pair. And we've got a few options at outside back, so we've got a little bit of flexibility there. We're still kind of seeing how the season, goes and who may be the starting outside backs at the end of the regular season going into playoffs.
And I know we've already started the season here, but just a couple of games under your belt. Lewis and Clark was the only Region 24 team that appeared in the preseason NJCAA Division I soccer poll. Is there any other teams around the region really that you're kind of circling on the calendar and looking forward to getting out there on the field with?
Yeah, well, typically Swick's also been a good team. They've always been one towards the top of our region, so that's one we really keep an eye on. They knocked us out of the playoffs last year, so we know that when that time comes, we're going to be ready to play. Obviously, like you said, Lewis and Clark's going to be another one, but especially at the junior college level, you never know which new players are coming onto teams and who's going to have an impact. So we really have to keep our eyes out for everybody, because you never know which new players for teams are going to have an impact, and it could be anybody's game.
And speaking of which, as you mentioned, Swick ended the Cobra season last year, a 2-0 final. Is there any one thing you could pinpoint that you're looking for the Cobras to do a little bit better this season to possibly make a return trip to the national tournament?
We really want to focus on getting players forward when we get into the attacking half of the field. I think one thing last year is we didn't have enough players getting involved when we do get into that final third trying to score goals. So a lot of it is working on that transition of, do we have enough players that can support our attack, and we're not just leaving a couple forwards alone when we try and score goals.
And going through the preseason training process and everything, are there any specific goals you're setting for the team, or is there any kind of benchmarks that you try to put forth for individual players?
We do have a few individual components that we focus on. One of the bigger ones is we want to improve the players' agility and movement. So that's a big part of our strength and conditioning program here at Parkland, where they focus on the players' agility, first step, and their explosiveness in different directions. So we did put a lot of emphasis on that, and one of our goals in preseason was to really see that improvement in our players.
And is there any last little bit of information or last little tidbit you feel like the Parkland College soccer fans out there should know about this year's edition of the Parkland soccer team?
Well, I would say that we've got a few injuries right now and we're getting healthy. So there's a few girls that haven't been able to quite get out on the field and play very much. So keep an eye for some new players that are going to be getting some playing time this year that, just have been on the bench from the start of the season, and we've got some speed that we're looking forward to seeing out on the field. And once we get a few more players healthy, it'll be exciting to see, what shows up on the field.
Well, Coach, we really enjoyed watching your team on the field last year. I'm looking forward to getting out there, checking them out again this season, and thank you for taking a few minutes for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with a feature on the nationally ranked Parkland College volleyball team when we return. This is Cobra Corner right here on PCTV. And now we're going to be joined by redshirt sophomore Shelby Nunemaker, as Shelby now been with the program for a few years. So what do you feel like you've learned here over the last couple of years that's really helping you exceed on the court this season, maybe that you didn't know when you first got here for your freshman year?
I would say I'm really more volleyball intelligent than when I first came here. Physically, I would say I'm much stronger, and just listening to Cliff has helped me become a better player all around, because he always makes sure that we're better people than we are players too, so that helps.
What do you think are some of the strengths of the 2018 Parkland volleyball team?
I would say we have strength players 1 through 18 again. I mean, there's not one weak person here and not one girl that doesn't deserve to be here. In all areas of everyone's personality and their physical ability and their enthusiasm, it's just everyone wants to be here. So I just say that just the positivity that we radiate is awesome.
All right, now we're joined by sophomore Ashley King. As Ashley, good start to the season here for the Cobras, 19-1. What are some things that have been going especially well for the team so far this year?
I think the team just has really good chemistry. We focus a lot during preseason on team bonding and getting to know each other as people instead of just as players, and I think that helps us out a lot during the season starts.
Needless to say, there's a lot of talent on the court out there behind us. How competitive are these practices, and how important is that to get you guys ready to play for these weekend tournaments?
Yeah, I'd say it's crucial that we're so competitive at practice. I think that ultimately just helps us get ready for big challenges because we know that our team is so deep that if someone's not performing, then the next person up can step in and fill the shoes. So.
And 9 consecutive trips to the national tournaments. Do you guys feel any pressure to try to make it 10 in a row?
Not pressure, but there is an expectation that we'll make it, but we are confident that we can meet the expectation. Cliff prepares us really, really well.
And now we're going to be joined by assistant volleyball coach Ron Hoppy Hastings. As Ron been with the program a long time now, had an immense amount of success. So how much pressure do you guys feel with the tradition that's been built here at Parkland College to kind of keep that train rolling?
Yeah, I think it's important to Cliff that the community knows that we're involved and that we're passionate about what we're doing, and I think that passion kind of goes into having success, because when you're passionate about what you're doing, you're gonna be better at it. So I don't think we try to think a lot about it, because I think it just kind of happens naturally with how we run the program.
So what keeps you guys motivated to keep coming to practice every day and keep pushing the girls to get to where they want to go?
You know, we work hard to, as Cliff always says, kind of create this dynasty. He wants to be remembered for what he did while he was here. Being a JUCO volleyball coach isn't always the most glamorous of titles, and you don't get a ton of recognition. But I think what he's done with the program and his passion for the program has just kind of set him aside from a lot of other coaches.
I saw with my own 2 eyes, you guys continued to battle and kept getting one step closer, and then finally able to break through there in 2015.
Yeah.
Followed it up with a second national title. So have your goals changed at all since finally reaching the mountaintop, or are you guys still trying to run the program about the same as previously?
Yeah, I don't think we're purposely trying to change anything. Obviously, that class and that group of kids was super special and super important, but I think that's kind of like the standard we set now, and we try to emulate that standard in terms of recruiting class and in terms of success, both on the court and off the court.
And I know you're also very involved in the recruiting efforts and trying to fill out the roster each year. So traditionally, what kind of volleyball players are you looking for, and are there any specific traits that really help you identify who you'd like to see in the Parkland uniform?
We have a big roster, so it doesn't always seem like we're picky with who we recruit, but we are pretty picky. We want kids who are athletically talented, but also just really good women who are fun to be around, who kind of buy into this concept of we're a family at Parkland. We like to be family on the court. We like to be family off the court. So there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, we like kids who could go D1, should go D1, are thinking about going D1, but maybe wouldn't play that first or second year, so they need a stepping stone to Parkland. And so that's kind of where we enter in. It's a good group of kids who really enjoy each other, which again is important, especially when you have a bigger roster. You need kids, 9 through 18 to buy into the fact that even if they're not playing on the floor, they're still contributing to a national championship.
And welcome back to Cobra Corner, as we are pleased to be joined by the head coach of the Parkland College men's soccer program, Mr. Mark Sikora. Coach, thank you for taking a few minutes away from the team and getting out on a rainy afternoon to come out here and join us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So good overall season last year. 15 wins is certainly nothing to frown about or anything like that, but came up just a little bit short there in your bid to return to nationals. Always tough when you're dropping PKs like that, but what are some things that you've really been focusing on here during the off season and constructing the 2018 roster to try to get back to that national tournament?
Yeah, so 2016 was kind of our breakthrough year, and then last year, 2017, like you said, we got very, very close. I think it was 6-7. We lost some penalties, and so that at that point, anything could have happened. It just didn't go our way. But I think because of that experience, our sophomore or returning guys really, I hope, kept that in the back of their mind, and they want to get back to that position again. The most difficult thing that we run into is when we bring in new players, how do we get them up to the speed, and how do we get them up to the expectation where they might hear that this is what the expectation is for our program, but they're not necessarily ready to get there yet. And it's going to take a while. So returning guys, you hope that they do what they need to do in the off season, but then also, provide the leadership from the beginning when we come into preseason to set that tone. We obviously keep that in the back of our mind, like this is where we want to get to at the end, and it's just a matter about managing throughout the season to get there.
And we mentioned that it did come down to penalty kicks last year, just kind of chatting with people, out the field at the last few years and stuff. How difficult is that to have your season come down to penalty kicks? For those that don't know, we don't play penalty kicks during the regular season, only once we get to playoff time. So you kind of play one way throughout the whole season. Then when we get to the postseason in Region 24 play, we do implement the penalty kicks. So we've won some of those, we've lost some of those, but how is that difficult to get a team ready for something that you haven't necessarily done the whole season?
Yeah, you just kind of hope that it doesn't get there, and it's one of those things like when it happens, a lot of people will say, well, of course you would have worked on that throughout the year because in this very consequential moment, that's something you should have planned for. But in the whole scheme of playing, penalties is a very small piece. Obviously, you focus on it when you get down to that point. So how do you recreate that during the year? And not only that, but you got guys who are playing 110 minutes. They've run maybe 8 to 10 miles. It's super tight. It's super, everybody's on edge. And now you're telling them that you need to step up and do this thing. So I'm not sure how you even recreate the mental and physical challenge of that. That's not to say that we don't do it. And that way we can kind of get a sense of maybe who we trust. And after that, it's just a crapshoot. Now, for that penalty set, every one of the first 12, every shooter hit it about as perfect as you can get. And the keepers were, doing all they could. It was like everybody was scoring.
50-50 shot sometimes.
And it was a difference of about a half a foot and the one that we didn't make. And so, and I know the player who, who on our team who took that last shot that got saved, he was gutted, and as the rest of us were. But, life goes on, and you just kind of keep going again. Now, if anything, maybe we just tell them this year, maybe let's not get in that position. We'd rather not do that. If we can win it in regulation, let's go ahead and try. But it's just one of those things that the game has, and we just kind of hopefully plan for it and do the best.
So you touched on it just a little bit there, but we do have a large influx of freshmen on this year's team. And I've always felt like the fall sports are particularly interesting with both soccer teams and the volleyball, because you don't necessarily have as much time to prepare these players because they are just getting here at the beginning of August and things like that. And you're starting to play about 2-3 weeks later. So what are the big obstacles to kind of get everybody on the same page and get them up to game level competition?
So we typically report August 1st with medical, and then start our activities, our workouts. But on the good side, classes don't really start until, say, the 20th or somewhere in there. So we can pretty much be with them a couple times a day, and that's a good transition for them into school. I think actually when classes start is when it gets really tough, because now they're reminded you're a student athlete, you're expected to go to class and do the work and still do the soccer stuff. And then also just try to figure out what level of practice you need to bring, and then play against teams that you don't really know much about, and then the travel and all this stuff. So, the best that myself and my assistant coach Tim and then the returning guys do is just kind of keep in their ear, say, hey, this is what you can expect. The reality is they don't really know. They hear it, but until they really experience it, And I think whatever we get done in the positive is really a bonus in that situation. We've been pretty fortunate, because again, these are guys who have played a pretty high level in other places, so the travel might not be that big of a deal. The balancing of their time and management might not be big of a deal. They all come from schools too. It's just a matter of maybe of being away from home and, kind of being off on their own for the first time. That's a tough transition. But we just kind of keep checking in with them and how are you doing? And it's really, I think the thing I do appreciate about all the coaches and the staff here at Parkland is very much a wrap-around environment for a kid who's come from, it could be, from down the street, it could be a kid from across the world. And to kind of keep a track on them and make sure they're doing okay from the beginning. Because if they have a good first semester, then we're doing our job and we'll get them on track.
And focusing a little bit more specifically on the 2018 Cobras here, Jesus Reina and Zach Gowley, a couple of key cogs from last year's team that are back and really did a nice job both scoring goals and also setting up their opponent or their teammates there. But who are some other guys that you're really looking to have a big contribution here for the Cobras and really feel comfortable out there putting them up in the attack?
So Jesus and Zach certainly got the most press and well-deserved. But of course, the expectation now is that they take us to that next level.
Sure.
So it's a new challenge for both of them. When I look to put a team together, I try to find those really key central figures and let's build around that. I'm not interested in blowing everything up for the sake to start over. So I went into recruiting cycle with that in mind. And so it's about finding quality, but it's also quality that works together. I've got some really great returning players, especially in the back. Josh Hayes, China, we call him China, Christian. Ethan Norton has been fantastic. And we had a goalkeeper who left, but now he's come back, so we have a little bit of experience there as well. And then it's just about the new guys who are definitely talented, but then also getting him into the right situation. And then also explaining to guys like Zach and Jesus that your game and your success is only going to be magnified if you can also blend in with them. And in the first month or so, they got it. And it's enjoyable to see how they're mixing together. And I think it takes a big leader to really back off a little bit and say, hey, I don't have to be the one to carry all the water all the time. But also in crucial times when they need to lead the charge, that's the expectation I have of them. And knock on wood, so far, it's worked out more often than not.
So ICC at number 10, Parkland at number 14 in the preseason poll. I know they just released their first regular season poll recently this week. But who are some other teams in Region 24? Are there other games on the schedule that you have circled that really could make or break our season this year?
Every game becomes important for different reasons. We've added John Wood. Don't know really anything about him yet, so that'll be curious. But then the regular competition that we run into definitely is Lewis and Clark, which we'll see tomorrow. Heartland is on the up. I think it's taken him a couple years, but he's figured it out, and so they're very competitive now. And certainly ICC. I tried to build an out-of-region schedule early on in the season, which I think would be symbolic of the quality and the difficulty. So we kind of survived that last couple of weeks, and I hope that our success there really carries over and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's another game, it's important, but at the same time, we've been stressed like this before. The good thing, I thought about this the other day, the good thing about having new guys is they don't know the difference.
Sure.
Like, we sit and say, yeah, this has been 12 years and we're 500 against, and it's any given moment, but they don't know that. And maybe that's a good thing, because I think sometimes guys can outthink themselves, they can outworry themselves, and they just don't play freely. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be the case this year. And I've been trying to just hold back a lot about how I feel about the match coming up, because I don't want them to see it or hear it from me. And just, this is what we do. We work on where we need to get better, and we test to see if we got better. And if we did, great. If we didn't, we got to go back to the drawing board. It's really not about who it is or what the conditions are. It's just constantly trying to improve.
And a 4-0-1 start to the season, including speaking of out-of-region games, a very impressive win over number 7 St. Louis Community College. So how do you look at that against another top 10 program as kind of a litmus test, but also a kind of a confidence builder as you get into more regional play and really put the team in the right direction?
Yeah, when we added Iowa Central, who we've never played before, but they come out of a very difficult region, and St. Louis, we had we had played St. Louis 2 years ago, and we won that game to go to nationals. And then last year they were undefeated throughout the year, #1 for a long period of time. So when I had a chance to go down there and play them, I was like, yeah, why not? Because it's really house money at that point. If we don't do well, that was the expectation. But if we do, maybe there's something we bring out of it. But again, preseason polls, what do you know?
Sure.
They're just going off the old stuff. And I was actually surprised that we were in the preseason poll, but we'll take it. But really that one was really more about 3 days. We played St. Charles on Friday and then St. Louis on Sunday, and it was 105-degree heat index, and it was down at their place, and it was about as hostile of an environment as you can get. And it wasn't perfect, but we came out with a result which I think has kind of pushed us forward a little bit. So any of the things that I'm thinking like we could do well or we were going to have success this year, it's one thing when a coach says it's another thing that the guys can experience it, and it's a win that they can really hang their hat on. And we'll see. It might mean nothing tomorrow, but up until this point, it's been important.
And for all the Cobra fans tuning in right now, can you talk a little bit about kind of stylistically or what kind of team, what's the approach that they can see from the Cobras this season on the field?
Yeah, a lot of the players are very much about possession. We like to keep the ball. We like to move the ball. We're fast. It's funny. I think coaches sometimes pick players that remind them of themselves. I'm not fast, but I'm short. We're not necessarily all that tall in some places. But when I go out and try to find guys, there's some basic things that I need them to do, and they need to be athletic and they need to be fast thinkers, but they also need to, really want to enjoy having the ball. So we work on it in training, and that's hopefully what we'll continue to do. Just because I find that entertaining, and I figure if I'm going to stand on the sideline, I want to be entertained too by my team. So there's style of play that I want, and for the most part, they're getting it. If it holds, great. I think we have a good chance. If nothing else, we'll at least play the way that I think I would want us to play.
And is there any last little bit of information that you feel the fans out there should know about the 2018 Cobra soccer team?
No, I mean the same stuff, man. Come out and support your classmates, support your school, your programs. I think between ourselves and the women's team, there's really, really great student athletes who work hard out there. And I would say that we're just a piece of what I think is I think by vote, one of the best junior colleges in the country, athletically and student-wise, certainly the best in Illinois. And so. And it's also reach out to the community too, and that's another piece that I think it's very important to us, is that we get the local kids out and the families out to know that high-level college stuff is happening right down the street, and it's a place where I think a lot of kids should aspire to go.
Well, Coach, as you know, I've been covering the team for some years now, and I will say your team is always a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. I've always enjoyed coming out. They always play with energy. They always play together, and I think you do a great job with the team. So thank you very much for joining us here on Cobra Corner, and we look forward to joining you out at the field again this year.
All right, thanks.
And we'd like to thank you for joining us for another edition of Cobra Corner here on Parkland College Television. As we've learned here today, it's going to be an exciting fall semester here at Parkland College, as the Parkland men's and women's soccer teams, as well as the volleyball program, have already kicked off their 2018 campaigns, all of which very successful here in the early part of the season. So we will definitely be anxious to follow the teams here throughout the course of the semester as they get into Region 24 play and possibly trying to advance on to the national tournament. So for now, we thank you for being with us. You've been watching Cobra Corner right here on PCTV.